taking a moment. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go.
Got it. Welcome and bienvenidos. Thank you for joining this virtual community meeting for the Resilient New Jersey Raritan River and Bay Communities Project. Just a quick note on translation services tonight. For American Sign Language interpretation, we will pin our interpreter. You can also indicate that you require American Sign Language interpretation in the chat, and our interpreter will work with you directly. Si desea escuchar una traducción en vivo en español, estamos poniendo instrucciones en el chat. So as everyone gets settled, please take a moment to update your name by hovering over your name in the participant window, clicking More, and rename. Provide your name and city. We are very excited to have everyone here tonight and sharing your valuable time to help guide the outcomes of this project. So before we get started, we have some quick housekeeping items to take care of. To ensure that we limit background noise, we ask that everyone remain on mute when not speaking. We want to make sure that everyone is heard and also that we share important information with you. That means that we've broken this meeting into two parts. There's a short presentation that should take less than 30 minutes, and there'll be plenty of time for Q&A, and the rest of our time together will be in breakouts for discussion. So throughout the upfront presentation, we will post questions to you for response in the chat, and you can also ask questions in the chat, and our team will respond to those questions either in the chat directly or at the end of the presentation before the breakouts. And if there's any questions that we do not get to during the meeting, we'll follow up with those questions after the meeting in the report outs. Don't worry. We're going to spend most of our time together in the breakouts today, so please stay for those. That will help ensure that your perspective is represented. And this meeting is being recorded for our use, but just the initial presentation will be live streamed. And we will post the recording of the initial presentation on YouTube for rewatching and sharing. So let's find out who is in the room tonight. Please respond in the chat. How do you experience the Raritan River and Bay region? Are you a resident of Carteret, Woodbridge, Perth Amboy, Sayreville, South Amboy, South River, or Old Bridge? Do you work in one of these cities? Are you a concerned neighbor or visitor or subject matter expert? And let us know how you heard about the meeting tonight. So tonight we're hoping to share information about the project and why it's important, how the plan that we'll develop together can help the region build resilience, and we'll talk about what resilience is, what we've heard so far, what we've been up to so far, and how you can stay connected and involved throughout the entire project. And we're hoping to learn from you today what matters most to you in your communities, how you've been impacted by flooding, what you want to see change and stay the same. And we also want to know what factors you think are most important when making decisions and how we can ensure that this process works for you and that you want to continue participating with us. So while we're introducing the project team, let us know what you are hoping to get out of today and what you're hoping to contribute. And if what you're looking for is not captured within our agenda, we might be able to find a way to work it into the question and answer and the breakouts. So please let us know. This also won't be our last meeting on the topic, as we're still early in the process, and we'll talk about other ways to get involved further in the presentation. So with that, the Resilient New Jersey Raritan River and Bay Communities Project is a partnership between Middlesex County and the municipalities of Old Bridge, Woodbridge, Sayreville, South Amboy, South River, Carteret, and Perth Amboy, as well as the YMCAs of Middlesex County. And a lot of the folks on that steering committee are here tonight, so we'll introduce them. The consultant support consists of an interdisciplinary team of engineers, scientists, technology developers, and planners from the organizations listed at the bottom, and they'll introduce themselves either as we present or in the breakouts. And there are also local, state, and federal agencies involved, community-based organizations, and input and decision support from community members like those on this call is extremely critical to project success. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce members of the project team tonight, and then we'll hear from Middlesex County about our local experiences with Hurricane Haida. So we're joined by Dave Rosenblatt, who's our State Resilience Officer, who's going to share some opening remarks.
Thank you, Carly. The goal of Resilient New Jersey is to develop a regional, actionable plan that addresses flood hazards in the region now and 50 years from now. The intent is to build off existing efforts and tie them together into a cohesive strategy, help fill in the gaps, and do this based on what people who live in the area, who work in the area, play in the region, say they need. This will require outreach and engagement in many different methods, as well as collaboration with a wide variety of stakeholders to ensure that the recommendations are implementable. Many people have told us so far they want to see this effort address the risks that this region is facing right now from flooding, and to do so in a way that also improves the quality of life, builds regional economies, and restores the environment. A regional planning effort like this could affect people's lives for generations, and input from people who live in the area is as critical as technical data and analysis. All right, so that's the script. Now let me go off script for a second. Off script, as the state's Chief Resilience Officer, I would say we need your help. We need your help. We can't and don't intend to plan everything regarding climate change and our state's reaction to it from Trenton. It's got to occur locally. We have recently released the state's climate change resilience strategy. It's been signed off by Governor Murphy. It's the first edition of this resilience strategy. I encourage, if you haven't read it yet, read it. It's online at the DEP website. It's about 130 pages long, but it'll help you understand the greater context that you're operating in. We are working at the state on an interagency council, which includes about, I think, 20 state agencies right now, trying to change the way the state operates, whether it's in grant funding procedures, just routine operations of the various departments like the Office of Emergency Management or Economic Development Agency or Department of Health. We're all going to be affected by climate change, and we have to accommodate the changes that are coming. We have to react to them. And so we're trying to change the way the state looks at the future, the way the state does business to prepare for the future. Then we hope that the local and regional governments are able to respond accordingly, that they also take a look at the future, look at the science, look at how temperature increases are going to affect the regions, then sea level rise, increased flooding, more intense floods, heat waves. It's all going to happen. We have a scientific report on climate change on our website too. You might want to take a look at that. It's 200 pages, and that will also assist you in what you do here. But we really need that local spin on how you see the changes that are necessary to respond to the effects of climate change. So I thank you for being here tonight, for listening to me briefly, and good luck. Thanks, Carly.
Thanks so much, Dave. And so I'm going to take a moment to introduce members of our steering committee that are here tonight. And we also have other representatives from NJDEP. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm a planner with the Bureau of Climate's Resilience Planning, and I am one of the many grant administrators working on Resilient New Jersey. Very excited to be here.
Thanks, Emily. And Doug Greenfeld with Middlesex County.
Yes, hi, Doug Greenfeld, Planning Director with Middlesex County. We're happy to be here.
Thank you. And Lori Sobel. with Middlesex?
Yeah, hi everyone. Lori Sobel, Supervising Planner of Sustainability and Resiliency with the Office of Planning, Middlesex County.
Lakeisha Carter?
Hello, everyone. Lakeisha Carter, Assistant Director for Middlesex County Division of Children's Services and Community Services Representative.
Wonderful. And is there anyone from Middlesex County that I'm missing? All right.
Yeah, Carly, we're also joined by Brady Smith, our Senior Environmental Planner.
Hi, everyone. Yep, Senior Environmental Planner with the Office of Planning there in Middlesex County. Great to be
Hi,
here.
Brady.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for missing you, Brady. And I
That's
see
all
we've
right.
got John Ferguson on the line as well. Welcome, John Ferguson.
Hi, I finally made it. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And then John will tell us about our local experiences with IDA once we're done with the introductions. Thank you, John. We're joined by Steve Jobin from the YMCA.
Good afternoon, or good evening now, everybody. Carly, would you like me to introduce the Y folks?
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, so just real quick, in Middlesex County, we are fortunate enough to have 5 YMCA organizations. And one thing the Y does really well is we really are able to connect with families in a lot of different ways, whether it's through childcare, whether it's through gym and swim type programs, whether it's counseling programs. So there's a whole lot of different methods the Y uses to connect with families and bring folks together. So that's really our role in this, is we're here really to help bring this subject matter to the streets of our towns throughout Middlesex County. So on the call today, we have Chris and Jen from the Old Bridge Y. Chris, I don't know. I know if you want to say hello.
Hey, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
And Gina is going to be working in South River from the Raritan Valley Y. Gina is also on.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Subject near and dear to my heart. I also serve as environmental commission in my hometown and know the inside and out the perils of the flooding that we've had recently.
Yeah, just so you know, Gina is a commissioner in Somerville. So, which has been recently really affected deeply. Rose and Jerry are on. If you guys could say hello from the Metuchen, Edison, Woodbridge, South Amboy YMCA.
Hi, I'm Rose Cushing, President and CEO at the YMCA in Metuchen, Edison, Woodbridge, and South Amboy. And as indicated by our name, we're in many communities and look forward to working with you guys.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve, and good evening, everyone. Jerry Jesse, I'm the Director of Operations with our South Amboy YMCA. Good to be with you all. Thank you.
And Roger and Shannon, I don't see pictures, but they may be on by phone. I'm not sure. Are you on? So Roger and Shannon are with the Gateway Y, which represents the Woodbridge and Carteret, the Rawway and Carteret area of Middlesex County. So there's that's our Y team, which will be working with all of the city officials and township officials to make sure that we get the information and to people on the streets. Specifically, in my case, in Perth Amboy, we'll be working to make sure that a lot of our minority communities and that could perhaps be affected by this are really part of this process. So thanks again to my Y colleagues, and Carly, back to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you to everyone from the Ys for being here and for participating. It's really exciting to have such an incredible coalition of community-based organizations involved in an effort like this. So thank you. We've also got Damian Gill from Old Bridge.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Damian Gill, I'm with the zoning office and I'm part of the steering committee. I'm also the floodplain manager for Old Bridge Township.
And I think we're also joined by Veena Savant from Old Bridge.
Good evening, all. This is Veena. I'm the Township Planner, Planning Director, Old Bridge, and I'm excited to be a part of this team.
Wonderful. Is there anyone else from Old Bridge that you'd like to introduce, Veena and Damien? I don't see anybody.
I believe we are joined by Councilman Dave Mervyn.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed he was in the chats.
Yeah, I'm here. I happen to be the Ward 1 for, which encompasses the Raritan Bay beachfront area and probably our biggest flood prone area in Old Bridge. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We have Art Lundensky, I apologize, Art, from South River.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Martin Lundensky. I'm the Borough Administrator, Floodplain Manager, Construction Official, Office of Emergency Management, and the Zoning Officer for the Borough of South River.
And Mike Sika from Carteret. Mike, would you also like to introduce anyone else from Carteret?
I'm the only one here from Carteret right now. Mr. Dupont, our engineer, may be joining us in a little while. And Michael Sina, Mayor Ryden's Chief of Staff. It's good to be here.
Wonderful. Glenn Skarzinski from South Amboy. And Glenn, please also feel free to introduce anyone else from South Amboy.
I think I'm the only one here from our team, Glenn Skarzinski, City of South Amboy Administrator.
Okay, wonderful. And I see we're also joined by Nick Tafaro with Middlesex County.
Yeah, good afternoon. Hi, Carly. How you doing?
Good. Hi, Nick. Okay, I think that's everyone from the steering committee and from our region team. Have I missed anyone at all?
Carly, this is Dan Frankel, Business Administrator from Sayreville, replacing Kirk Mick, who's on vacation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan. I see you joined us by phone. Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it over now to John Ferguson with Middlesex County.
Good evening. I'm John Ferguson. I'm the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for the county. And what I have is a couple minutes just to talk about, actually, it's two weather events that actually did happen over the last month. The first one was actually Henri, which actually affected our south part of the county. It was about 7 municipalities that were affected by that storm. That storm, just like Ida, had spots where we went from 7 to 10 inches of rain that fell in a short amount of time. Unfortunately, those towns were the only ones that actually were really affected across the state. So we were not able to get a federal declaration for the damages that occurred. They just did not have the dollar amount that's required for us to make it. The big thing is that, you know, most of the state wasn't affected by the storm as badly as they were. So we weren't going to reach the state threshold that's required. So unfortunately, they also tried to use the SBA. They weren't able to get that. The hardest hit towns were Helmetta, Jamesburg, and Monroe. Helmetta had like 74 homes that actually had water damage and about 100 in Monroe. Jamesburg, it was more businesses, but they also lost their communication center at the police station. So definitely not a great day. All right. Then, okay, it was just so nice enough. 2 weeks later, September 1st, we decided to have another big storm, Ida. Once again, those waters were, 7 to 10 inches, depending what, municipality we actually ended up hitting. This was actually the north part of the county. Okay. I believe it ended up being 13 of the 25 municipalities definitely had some major water damage. The hardest hits were up in the northwest corner. They were actually, Piscataway, Middlesex Borough, and Denellen. Doesn't mean that you weren't in Woodbridge, you weren't in Carteret. They all had water damage, but those were actually the worst. For all the damages and stuff, there's actually 7,500 people, I should say, applicants to FEMA asking for assistance. That is actually more than happened in Sandy and Irene. So it was definitely a major storm. We did have 3 people lose their lives due to the flooding. Technically, how much damage actually helped that happened in Middlesex County actually was high enough for us to reach this state threshold, just using our county. So as you see, we need to do something to make sure everybody's protected. So this whole group is trying to come up with great ideas. And we're also starting to realize is that flooding problems just don't stop at the municipal borders. It is all 25 municipalities that actually all have to be part of this. You know, we're just lucky enough that we're starting with 8. And I guess I'll hang on if anybody has any questions later. So thanks, Carly.
Thanks, John. I'll turn it over to Mary now to introduce us to the project and carry us into the breakouts.
Great, thanks, Carly. Thank you, John, for that overview. So hi, everyone. My name is Mary Kimball. I'm an urban planner on the Arcadis team, and I'll give you an overview of the project before we go into the breakouts and before a presentation also from our partners at Scape. So the goal of this project is to develop a regional resilience action plan that will lay out a series of recommended actions to reduce risk from flooding. And a critical element of developing this plan is getting input from the people who know this region well and who are the most affected by flooding. So thank you all for joining tonight. But tonight is also just one of the many ways we're seeking to get input in this project. So this project is looking at flooding in 2 different ways. Storm-related flooding and also non-storm or tidal flooding. Storm-related flooding can come from major storms like hurricanes, tropical storms, or nor'easters. The water from these events can flow into homes, businesses, streets, and other important assets. It can come from the sky in the form of rain. It can come from beneath us when the storm sewer system overflows. It can come from the sea with storm surge, or it can come from rivers when they overflow their banks. Non-storm related flooding, we're looking here specifically at tidal flooding when the pull of the moon pulls water higher in certain areas. And as we just heard from John, this region has experienced many flood events in the past. We also know that over time, both storm related flooding and tidal flooding are going to get worse or getting worse due to changes in sea level rise and also changes in rainfall. So during the breakouts, we're going to talk more about this. We want to talk to you about how you experienced flooding and where you do so. But if anything is coming up now for you that you want to share about experiences with flooding, please feel free to share this in the chat. Let us know what you're most concerned about and what you hope that this project will address. So what do we mean when we say resilience? Resilience is our ability to grow, adapt, and respond to changing conditions or sudden storm events and continue to grow and thrive. It requires strength and adaptiveness across all systems, social, environmental, economic, governance, and also physical infrastructure. And this means that we need to think beyond just risk reduction and also consider how flood protection can create safer and healthier communities that can continue to adapt with changing conditions. And we need to work to ensure that our systems and decision-making processes are inclusive and that they center the needs and perspectives of people who will be most affected by those decisions. So what type of actions are we looking at to build resilience? We're looking at a broad range of actions that could be included in this final action plan. This includes potential physical infrastructure or nature-based infrastructure like wetland restoration, as well as new or revised policies or ordinances. Also potential recommendations for outreach, education, and capacity building. And in the end, we imagine a mix of all of these types of strategies that will be needed to build resilience for the region. And to guide the development of the plan, we've identified these 5 goals. First, there's been a lot of work ongoing in this region to build resiliency, especially after Sandy. And we want to build off those planning initiatives and address gaps and opportunities to further resilience. Second, we recognize the need to ensure representation in the planning process from all who can be impacted, but especially socially vulnerable populations who face higher risks. Third, we're seeking solutions that are both innovative and forward-looking, but also things that are implementable and realistic, and also a mix of strategies for both the near and the long term. Fourth, we aim to build resilience in a way that enhances ecological, recreational, and economic resources in the region. And finally, ensure collaboration across many stakeholders, because we know that in the end, implementation of this plan will require concerted actions of many stakeholders that we're engaging through the process. We've also developed specific goals for diversity, equity, inclusion to guide the planning process. And these are consistent with the Middlesex County Strategic Plan Destination 2040. And we're seeking to achieve these goals through reaching out to partner organizations and to provide as many ways and formats to get involved in the planning process as possible. And always, if you have other ideas on more that we could be doing on engagement, please do share that as well. As we mentioned, we're still relatively early on in our process. We kicked off the effort last spring and have been focused on developing regional vision and shared priorities. We've also begun to analyze risk and identify potential tools. And our next step will be to develop scenarios, then select a preferred scenario, and then finally to develop an action plan. So as I mentioned, there are a variety of ways to get involved in the project in addition to tonight. We have an app that you can download to give feedback. We also have a website here that has a lot of information about the project as well as surveys for input. We also have a worksheet to develop community art. And over the coming months, we'll be hosting a series of in-person workshops to focus on local areas in coordination with the YMCA. So stay tuned on our website or sign up for our email list to make sure that you hear more about those. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah from Scape Landscape Architecture to talk more about those upcoming workshops and some of the work that the consultant team has been doing.
Thanks, Marion. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Tolgai with Scape, a designer and planner working together with Arcadis to develop the regional action plan. So we can go to the next slide. Great. So as Mary mentioned, we'll be having upcoming workshops that will focus on specific areas and neighborhoods in the region that have flooding issues. Here you can see like an overview of how we are going to discuss shared flood risk and also explain causes of flooding, get input on critical community assets, share information on ongoing projects, and also discuss potential new resiliency strategies with you. And we hope that you'll attend an upcoming event in your municipality. We also want to give a brief preview of these materials that we'll be sharing in person. You can go to the next slide. So to explain the causes of flooding, we'll show how floodwaters from coastal storms, heavy rains, or high tides impact your area and through flood pathways, and see how this information resonates with your experiences day to day. Here is an example from the Arthur Kill Industrial Waterfront, for example. You can go to the next slide. And next up, we'll be sharing information we've heard so far from you through engagement about your concerns and priorities that are specific to these focus areas. Here we have Woodbridge Creek as an example, and we want to refine these ideas and visions with input from you. Go to the next slide. We'll also be looking at some of the critical community assets that we've gathered and get input on anything that we may be missing. So far, we've focused on infrastructure, transportation, ecosystem and environmental health, emergency response, as well as other sort of assets related to public health, well-being, and quality of life. But we also want to hear from you what's most critical for your community and any critical community assets that we might be missing. You can go to the next slide. We'll also be sharing information on ongoing and planned projects in the region that aim to address flood risk, and also ask to share your thoughts about these projects and anything that we might be missing as well. And finally, next slide, we also want to discuss potential resiliency solutions with you, which we call the toolkit. So we have sort of a catalog of different options in the area, and we really want your feedback on how we should be prioritizing these solutions when addressing flood risk. So we really hope you join us in these upcoming workshops. Thank you. So back to Carly, I guess, for a Q&A.
Yeah, So we'll take a few moments to do Q&A before we move into the breakouts. Do you want to pull up the breakout slide, Mary? While we do that. Any questions from anybody? Give a moment. Okay. And I'm sure stuff will come up during the breakout. So Mary, do you want to introduce us and move us? Oh, there is a question. Would you like to come off mute? Are there waterworks engineers employed in the townships? Are you referring to engineers with experience in flood control projects? Correct. Okay. So there are floodplain managers in each township and each municipality, and also engineers with DPWs. I would have to defer to the folks on the steering committee within each of the municipalities on the specific makeups. We do have within the team on Resilient New Jersey lots of engineers with that kind of experience. So if you're specifically asking about this project, project team includes coastal engineers, stormwater engineers, civil and environmental engineers, and so on and so forth. Does anyone from any of the municipalities want to respond to this question? Or maybe somebody from the county?
I'm sorry, Carly, I didn't hear the original question.
A question about whether or not there are if there are engineers working within the municipalities with experience in developing flood control projects. They said that the language that is used here is waterworks engineers. And so I provided a bit of an overview of my understanding as well as who's on the project team.
Right. I think the county would defer to the municipalities to answer the question on who the municipalities have.
Sorry, from South River, no, we do not.
Oh, understood. Thanks, Art.
Old Bridge Township, I would believe that it should be a combination of engineer, planner, manager. So as long as we have a floodplain manager who understands the laws and the regulations and the planning aspect of it, the municipality would be covered. So yes, Old Bridge Township has a floodplain manager.
Thank you, Bina. And I think that's the case for each of the municipalities. Okay. And I think this question could also be fleshed out a little bit more in the breakout. So I'll turn it over. If there's no other questions, I'll turn it over to you, Mary, to kick us into our rooms.
Sounds good. So we have 4 different breakout rooms today. We had a lot of attendees actually responded that you wanted to focus on the region as a whole. So we're going to have 2 different rooms to focus on the region as a whole. And then we'll have one group focused on the north of the Raritan River and one group focused on communities south of the Raritan River. Within those breakout groups, we'll all be covering the same discussion questions. They're listed here, but we'll go through them in detail too. But we'll talk about flood experiences first. Then we'll talk about community vision, and then the third on evaluation criteria. We won't actually reconvene in this main overall room after the breakouts. You'll just leave the meeting from the breakouts themselves, just to give us more time within the breakouts. So I'll cover a few next steps before we break too. Also, just a reminder here on sort of ways to get engaged in the process. I mentioned before the app, the website, the survey, artwork, but we also have social media handles. We also have a media or a project hotline that you can leave a message at and we'll get back to you. And we also have an email address that you can reach us at. All right. And I thought I had a slide on ground rules, but anyway, so I don't have a slide, but a few ground rules too. We ask that everyone is respectful of everyone's time and gives everyone space for everyone to participate. So please also remember to speak from your own experience and also to use the raise hand function if you need to. Also, if you're able to turn on your camera, that can be great so we can all get to know each other too. Thank you all again for joining and look forward to meeting you on this project. Thanks so much. All right. Boone, Megan, is this our group now?
Is this the North of Raritan group?
Did you want to be in the North of Raritan, Doug? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't click the join right away because you were still talking and then it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Boone, are you able to move Doug over?